Good afternoon. Now we will discuss the historical background of the Indian Constitution, which is the most important topic in the Indian polity general studies paper in the civil services examination, the group examinations, and other competitive examinations. So, this part now deals with the historical background of the Indian Constitution. We will discuss at length about the entry of entry of British in India, and also the different acts which have been framed under the company rule. Because the Constitution, the historical background of Constitution consists of company rule, crown rule, and also constituent assemblies in three parts. Now we will discuss the first part, that's known as the company rule. Before that, we had to discuss a length about the entry of British in India. Entry of British in India. Vasco da Gama, first of all entered into India. First of all entered into India near Calicut in the year 1498. In the year 1498, on May 20th, May 20th, 1498, Vasco da Gama entered near Calicut of India. Thereby a sea route has been opened. Thereby a sea route has been opened between Europe and East. Europe and East. Now India has become a center of attraction for the trade business. A center of attraction for the trade business. British Joint Stock Company, British Joint Stock Company, a commercial company, that is nothing but East India Company. Unarigde Ustindice Campaign. Unarigde Ustindice Campaign. East India Company, a British joint stock company, has been established by John Watts and George White. John Watts and George White. They have established the East India Company in 1600 AD. In 1600 AD. The main purpose of this establishment of East India Company is developing the trade business with South countries and Southeast Asian nations. South and Southeast Asian nations. The British first of all entered into India. The British first of all entered into India in the year 1608. That is the crucial year. 1608, on 24th of August. On 24th of August in the year 1608, near the Surat port, and thereby British has established the trade links with India. After 7 years, the British has granted an order, a royal order, a firman, a royal order. Thereby they are allowing to open a factory, near Surat, under the leadership of Thomas Roe. And after that, numerous commercial establishments have been come into force on both the eastern coast and also western coast. A lot of commercial establishments have come into force, and numerous English communities have been developed all along the three important presidencies. What are they? Three important presidencies. One is Calcutta, the second one is Bombay, and the third one is Madras. These are the three important presidencies where a lot of English communities have been developed. Calcutta, Bombay, and Madras. And the British have developed the trade links with India on silk, indigo dye, tea, cotton and opium. So this is the thing where British have developed the trade links with India. By 1750, EOC, East India Company, apart from having the commercial affairs, apart from having the business affairs, the East India Company have started intervening the politics also, intervening in politics also, and saw the transformation from commercial affairs, from trade to ruling, when Robert Clive defeated the Nawab of Bengal, Sirajud Dawla at the Battle of Plassey, in the year 1757. So that is the crucial war, the Battle of Plassey. That is the crucial year 1757, wherein Robert Clive has defeated Sirajud Dawla in the Battle of Plassey, where East India Company has intervened in politics also. Then after that, the rules of EOC have brought to an end. The rules of EOC, East India Company, have brought to an end in this 1858 year, where the company rule has come to an end. In the year 1858, after the First War of Independence. First War of Independence is nothing but Sepoy Mutiny in the year 1857. So company rule has come to an end by 1858, after the First War of Independence. That's 1857. That's Sepoy Mutiny. Then after the dissolution of this East India Company, after the disappearance and dissolution of East India Company, the British Crown has taken over the charge. And established British Raj in India. That period is known as Crown Rule. Almost from 1858 to 1947. So after attaining independence in India, there is a large scale urge for a constitution. After attaining independence, there is a large scale urge for constitution. As pointed out rightly by M.N. Roy, a constituent assembly was formed. Before the constitution, a constituent assembly was formed in 1946, and on January 26, 1950, constitution has come into force. India has made republic. There are a lot of series of events which have contributed a lot. To this constitution and polity. It is divided into three parts. One is company rule, second one is crown rule, and the third one is constituent assembly. First, in this topic, we will discuss the company rule. The company rule was from 1773 to 1858. 1773 to 1858. So this is the period of company rule. So this was the regime of East India Company. The very first act which was brought into existence was a regulatory act of 1773. Regulatory Act. That means British, how British has exercised the regulatory powers on the company affairs in India. How the British has exercised the regulatory powers on the company affairs in India. That is nothing but Regulatory Act of 1773. Regulatory Act of 1773. So this act has started the initiation of exercising powers, regulatory powers, controlling powers on company affairs in India. Company affairs in India. That means it has recognized, this act has recognized both administrative and legislative powers, both administrative and legislature powers, commercial powers of company affairs in India. And this act has laid the foundation for the centralized administration of British in India. This act has laid the foundation for the centralized administration in India. This act has named, this act has created, has named a post known as the Governor General of Punjab and the Governor General of Bengal. The Governor General of Bengal. So the Governor General of Bengal has replaced the old name Governor of Bengal. So the new terminology has been come into force by this act. That's known as the Governor General of Bengal. And then this act has created a council, an executive council with 4 members, an executive council with 4 members. And Lord Warren Hastings was the first Governor General of Bengal. Lord Warren Hastings was the first Governor General of Bengal. He has coined the word district collector. He has coined the word district collector, Lord Warren Hastings. There is the remaining 2 governors. One is Governor of Bombay, the second one is Governor of Madras. They were considered to be the subordinates. They were considered to be the subordinates for this Governor General of Bengal. The absolute powers were vested with the Governor Bengal. They are considered to be the subordinates, these 2 governors of Bombay and Madras. And then this act has facilitated the establishment of Supreme Court. This act has established the Supreme Court at Calcutta in the year 1774. In the year 1774, with one Chief Justice, and other 3 judges It has prevented the servants of the company. This act has prevented the servants of the company in doing the trade business with the locals. Doing trade business with the locals absolutely prohibited, and then accepting presents, accepting bribes from local natives are totally prohibited. This act is prohibited by taking bribes from locals and then accepting the presents. And then this act has strengthened the British administration on the company affairs by requiring the court of directors by reporting the facts on revenue, civils, revenue administration, civil administration, military administration, military affairs. But this act somehow failed because of 3 reasons. This act somehow failed because of 3 reasons. Number 1 is the Governor General of Bengal didn't have the veto powers. One of the failures of one of the reasons for failure in this act. The second one is he did not recognize the concerns of Indians. This act did not recognize the concerns of Indians who were making revenues to the company, and he did not and this act did not control the corruption levels of company officers. This act did not control the corruption levels of company officers. And then the next act after this regulatory act is Pitt's India Act 1784. Pitt's India Act 1784. So in a bid to rectify the defects, of Regulatory Act of 1773, British Parliament has passed a resolution. That is known as Amending Act of 1781. Known as the Act of Settlement. The next act which has come into force was Pitt's India Act 1784. This Pitt's India was renamed after the William Pitt, the youngest prime minister at the time. This act has established the supremacy of British administration on the company affairs. This act has established the supremacy of British administration on the company affairs. It could control effectively. This act could control effectively on revenue affairs, civil affairs, military affairs. And this act has established double government. That is, one is known as the court of directors. To manage the commercial affairs of the company. That's known as the court of directors. The second one is the board of control, was created at the time. Board of control to manage this legislative affairs, to manage the legislative administrative affairs. That is known as double government. The company's territories were named as the British. The company's territories were named as British possessions in India. So that's about the Pitt's India Act of 1784. So the next most important act is Charter Act. So what is Charter Act? Charter is a grant of order. It's a document. It's a grant of order by sovereignty of the country. Whereby the body is created with rules and regulations. That's known as charter. So this Charter Act has come into force in 1833. Charter Act, India Act, Government of India Act, Charter Act of 1833, St. Helena's Act of 1833. This Charter Act was the final. 1833 was considered to be the final step towards the commercial, the centralization. Final step towards the centralization of administration of British. In India. There was a separation of powers between legislature and commercial. There was a separation of powers. That is the initiation. This act specifically denoted that the Charter Act of 1833, wherein commercial affairs of the company have been completely closed by this act. All the commercial operations have been closed. So this is the most important provision of the act, Charter Act of 1833, where all the commercial affairs have been closed. And the EOC, East India Company, has become an administrative unit. No longer a commercial unit. All the commercial activities, affairs have been closed. It has become an administrative unit. And then the Governor General of Bengal has been replaced with the new term. The Governor General of Bengal has been replaced with a new term that is known as the Governor General of India. The Governor General of India. Governor General of India, who is exercising abnormal inherent powers on both revenue affairs, civil affairs, both revenue, civil, legislative affairs. Lord William Bentinck was the first Governor General of India. Lord William Bentinck was the first Governor General of India. This act has deprived of the legislative powers, of the governors of Bombay and Madras. This act has deprived of the powers of the governor of Bombay and governor of Madras. So all the legislative powers are vested with the Governor General of India, the Governor General of India, all the legislative powers. So then this act has enacted the legality of British colonization of the country, But still the company possesses at the time, the company possessed the Indian territories, but in left in trust, these Indian territories left in trust with His Majesty, all the Indian territories left in trust with His Majesty. And then this act, Charter Act 1833, they have created a commission known as Law Commission under the chairmanship of Lord Macaulay. Law Commission chairman was Lord Macaulay. And they have introduced the concept of a written examination for recruiting the civil servants. Earlier, there was no written examination in the country for recruiting the civil services, imperial civil service. First time, this act has facilitated the introduction of conducting the written examination for recruiting the civil servants. And the Bengal presidency have been divided into two. One is the presidency of Fort Williams. Second one is the presidency of Agra. But later on it was suspended. So that's about the Indian Charter Act of 1833. So the next comes, this is the last act under company rule. Under a series of company rule. This act is known as Charter Act of 1853. Government of India Act of 1853. Charter Act of 1853. This is the last of the series of Charters Act Charter series. And this act has established a clear-cut separation of powers. This act has established a clear-cut separation of powers. This clear-cut separation of powers, both civil and then military powers, clear-cut separation of powers. And there was a crucial act that is known as, has been established under this domain, that's known as Wood's Dispatch Act. Wood's Dispatch Act of 1854. Wood's Dispatch Act. This is the first act of introducing English education in India. This is the first act of education in India. This is nothing but a Magna Carta Act, Educational Act, wherein a three-tier educational system has been introduced in India. Three-tier educational system where primary education was in mother tongue, local language. Primary education was in local language. Secondary education was both in both in local language and English language. Secondary education was both in local and English language. Tertiary education, higher education was in English. Higher education was in English. That is known as Wood's Dispatch Act. That is Magna Carta Educational Act. Magna Carta Educational Act. And then Cornwallis, the father of civil services, has divided the civil services into two types. One is covenanted civil services, the second one is uncovenanted civil services. Covenant means a legal contract, a legal agreement. Covenant. Covenanted civil services are known as higher civil services, higher civil services, an agreement civil services, a legal agreement civil services, wherein all Britishers have been recruited under this covenanted civil services. The lower civil service is known as uncovenanted civil service, without any agreement, without any legality, where all Indians have been taken under this fold of uncovenanted civil services. This act, Charter Act of 1853, has facilitated that the covenanted civil services, the higher civil services have been thrown open to Indians also, So that is the beauty of this act. The higher civil services were also thrown open to Indians, and first time in the year 1855, the civil services written examination has been conducted. After that, Satyendranath Tagore was the first Indian which have been recruited under civil services, and this act has established the local communities contribution, the contribution of local communities also in the Indian Legislative Council, the four seats have been exclusively allocated and then appointed by the local governments, in the Legislative Council. That means the contribution of local communities. So that is the beauty of this Charter Act, where the local governments at 4 presidencies, one is Kolkata Presidency, the second one is Madras Presidency, the third one is an Agra Presidency, the fourth one is Bombay Presidency. These local governments have appointed the members in the Legislative Council. 4 seats have been appointed on this local government's category. Then how this act has come into force? Rajaram Mohan Roy's England's visit, one thing, and then second one is the petition committee of Bombay Association, and then committee of Madras Association. All these 3 factors have resulted in this evolution of Charter Act 1853 in India. So with this act, the company rule has come to an end, has brought to an end by 1858, after the first war of independence, that is Sepoy Mutiny 1857. So by 1858, all the rules of East India Company have brought to an end. This is the first part which is connected with the historical background of Constitution of India. Thank you very much.